Hello and welcome back to SnowRunner, y'all, but this video is not going to be about SnowRunner. This video is going to be about what the perfect off-road game might look like, and I can assure you that it is not SnowRunner. However, in my opinion, the perfect off-road game does not exist at the moment, so we're going to talk about some of the ingredients that might allow for the maybe not necessarily perfect, in air quotes, off-road game, but would at least get us fairly close with all of the kind of suggestions that we've seen from various communities across many different games throughout the past 10 or so years. And if there is any specific feedback that you would like to leave in the comments down below, especially if it's something that I didn't mention in this video, make sure to leave all of your suggestions down there, because again, I still believe that the search for the perfect off-road game continues. Now, over the years, we've had games like the Spintires tech demo, we've had Spintires the full release, we've had MudRunner, we've had SnowRunner, we are supposed to be getting a SnowRunner spin-off called Expeditions, and we've also had games like BeamNG Drive that continue to evolve over time. Now, BeamNG Drive is an interesting one because I'm sure there are people out there that would argue that BeamNG is as close as we have to a perfect off-roading game, but BeamNG isn't necessarily entirely focused on off-roading and has a lot more than just off-road that it needs to sort of cater to. So in that aspect, they don't always have all of the resources to focus on the off-road simulation. Now, obviously, BeamNG has some of the most advanced suspension dynamic simulation that we have seen in a lot of games, but I still don't think that it's quite as close to that perfect off-road experience that a lot of people have been dreaming of. And with that long-winded intro out of the way, we're going to dive into our very first point, and I'm sure that some people are probably going to either skip ahead or tune out at this point because they're like, well, that's not really all that important, but I feel like if it's something that people have been asking for so many years, it's at least worth talking about, and that is tracked vehicles. Now, tracked vehicles have obviously never been a thing in the Runner series because they are apparently outside of the scope of what the game engine is capable of. However, we don't really see them all that often in many video games in general. Really, the only games in recent memory that I can see that include the options for driving tracked vehicles are either things like construction simulator games, where you can drive things like bulldozers, excavators, things like that, or military-focused games where you can drive tanks. And for example, I mean, probably we would get more tracked vehicle driving experience out of a game like even maybe War Thunder than a lot of the off-road focused games that we have at the moment. And I think using a physics framework that would allow for tracked vehicles would really open up your list of potential vehicles and even fantasy vehicles that could be extremely fun to drive, for one. And also, I think it would just fulfill the want of a large part of the community that has essentially given up on ever getting tracked vehicles in a game focused on off-roading. And that, I think, is a very important point because it also moves us into our next talking point, which is it needs to be, in my view, not a game where off-roading is an option, but rather the idea of off-road gameplay is the central focus of the game. It's not something that you can do, it's something that literally is the entire point behind the game and the entire reason for playing the game itself. Now, you may say, well, but why would they make a game that is entirely focused on that when they could just have it as kind of a side note in a game that has a bunch of other things as well? And I think the entire reason why you would want to have a game that has, you know, a focus primarily on off-roading is you look at any game that allows you to sort of create your own experience and look at the amount of people that will go out of their way to create their own off-roading experiences. Like in, for example, GTA 5, there are people that will, you know, let's say they'll play a little bit of the story, they'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then they will literally just go off and find off-road trails or maybe even create their own off-road routes in GTA 5 and probably will in the next GTA game as well. I mean, there are entire FiveM servers that are dedicated to the purpose of off-road roleplay even. And let's also not forget the immense popularity of mobile off-road games like Off-Road Outlaws, for example. Off-Road Outlaws has been around for many, many years and is still one of the most played off-roading games you can get on a mobile device. And whether or not you like Off-Road Outlaws, you can't really deny the fact that a lot of people want these types of games and are willing to play them on on a PC or a console or even a phone. Now, another thing that I think would genuinely be a key pillar of a game like this would be a focus on the community itself and continuing to provide the community with the tools it needs to build the game environment that it wants. Now, the reason I say that is because the modding community around all of these games has really shown, it's shown me, and I think it's shown the rest of the community in general, that if the game doesn't have an experience in it that players genuinely want, someone is probably going to go out of their way to create it. I mean, look at TNB Trails in SnowRunner, for example. Literally, the mod creators behind these games, or rather behind these mods, not the games, but the mods themselves, they go above and beyond to create these experiences because people want them and because people enjoy them. And so I think because of that, I think a really healthy focus on having not only mod support, but encouraging the modding community to grow would be a genuinely key pillar to any open world off-roading game that would really ever come out. And I know that some people are probably going to get annoyed or upset at this next point, but I think if a game like this wants to see large-scale success, it has to be available on more than just PC. It has to be available on, it could start on PC, it could start as a PC project, but I think the eventual goal should be to make its way into console systems as well. Now, I'm not saying it should necessarily dumb itself down for consoles, because that's always a complaint, I think, of PC players, is that whenever a game that started out on PC goes over to consoles, or rather has a console version as well, then it dumbs down the game, so to speak. But I think that you would be able to avoid that by potentially developing your game and your user base on PC first, and then taking everything that you are able to take from the PC version and then developing it as its own separate version for consoles. Now, would that work? I don't know. It may not, but it's kind of where my head's at, because I feel like, and SnowRunner really showed us this, because whether you like it or not, there are so many more people that play these types of games on consoles than there are on PC, because consoles are, again, for better or worse, more accessible. And I'm sure someone is going to yell at me in the comments for that and tell me, how much less than a console they built their PC for out of used parts that were all secondhand, and you can do it if you have, the skills and the dedication and blah, 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 blah. But not everybody has, the free time to be able to do that, and other people just want to, sit down in front of their TV on their console and enjoy playing an off-road game for 30 minutes to an hour, and then they go do something else. And by no means am I saying that that kind of approach is more valid than a PC player's approach or should be prioritized higher by any means, but I think that they should both be allowed to exist. Both of those player bases should be allowed to exist and both be allowed to enjoy the game in their own ways that they want to enjoy it. And not only that, but should also be supported. It's like, do we have a console community? Yes. Should we support it? Yes. But should we also support the more hardcore community on PC? I also believe we should. And I know that we've gotten a little bit off topic here, but going back to what that perfect off-roading game might look like, really, I think it would have to, once again, be a continually evolving thing that had everything from rock crawling to free roam to Baja to mudding to all of these different things, and really have communities that are allowed to then take this as a platform and grow with it. Now, is that going to be the Runner series eventually? Maybe so, maybe not. And granted, with the way it looks like they're kind of taking the Runner series right now, that seems a little bit less likely because it seems like they want to take the Runner series in a different direction, like they're doing, for example, with Expeditions. But again, I'm not going to be necessarily pessimistic about the future of the Runner series, but I'm also not going to be overly optimistic about it either, because I don't know where they're wanting to take it in the long term. And so with that, we'll just have to wait and see. But again, let me know where you land on any of the things that we talked about in the comments down below. And if you're new around here and you would like to see more, hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on, and I will see y'all next time.